Part A, we want to find expressions for the quadratic functions whose graph are shown. Here is the first graph. The first graph we can see has a vertex, and this vertex is located at the point 3, 0. And since it's a parabola with a vertex, then we can use the formula y is equal to a times x minus h squared plus k, where hk is the vertex. Well, since we know that the vertex is 3, 0, that tells us that h is 3 and k is 0. So now we can say, okay, well, we can go ahead and put that information in there. So we can say that y is going to equal a times x minus 3 squared plus 0. But we still need to figure out what this function is. So now we need to use the ordered pair 4, 2. So we want to use the point 4, 2. So that means that x is equal to 4 and y is equal to 2. And that's going to allow us to solve for a. So plugging that in, we know that y is 2. And we know that x is 4. And then we're going to solve for a. Well, since it's plus 0, we don't need to write 0. We know that 4 minus 3 is 1. And 1 squared is 1. So therefore, we know that a is going to equal 2. So now we've determined what the formula is for the parabola. And so the formula is y, which is equal to 2 times x minus 3 squared. Now let's take a look at this next graph. This next graph is a parabola. We don't know what the vertex is, so we can't use the vertex formula. But we do know that if it's a quadratic, then we know that the quadratic is in the form of y, which is equal to ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay, so if we take a look at 0, 1, this represents the y-intercept. So in our problem, we can see that c represents the y-intercept. Because if we let x equal 0, then we will see that what's left over is the value of c. So if that's the y-intercept, then that tells us that c is equal to 1. Okay? And now we also know that the parabola opens down. So if the parabola opens down, then that means that a has to be negative. So we need to apply a negative to the value of a. So now in part 2, we can fill in our information. We can say that y is going to equal negative ax squared plus bx, and we know that c is equal to 1. Now that we have our equation, then we need to use these 2 points, negative 2, 2, and 1, negative 2.5. So if we look at, and this is going to be in step number 3, okay, we're going to set up a system of equations. Okay, so if we have negative 2 and 2. We're going to plug it into the equation that we just received. And so we're going to call that equation 1. So we know that y is going to be the value of 2 with this ordered pair. It's going to equal negative a times the value of negative 2 squared plus b times negative 2 plus 1. So we end up getting 2, which is equal to negative 2 squared is 4 times negative a is negative 4a. That becomes negative 2b, and that's plus 1. And then we're going to subtract 1 to both sides. So we get 1, which is equal to negative 4a minus 2b. So that is our first equation of our systems of equations. Now, if we look at the other ordered pair, which is 1 and negative 2.5, then we're going to plug that in and create a second equation. So looking at this equation up at the top in number 2, we know that y is going to be negative 2.5, and that's going to equal negative a times the value of x, which is 1, and then we're going to square that, plus b times 1 plus 1. So if we go a little further, we get negative 2.5, which is equal to negative a plus b plus 1. And if we subtract 1 to both sides, we get negative 3.5, which is equal to negative a plus b, and therefore that is equation number 2. So now what we're going to do in step 4 is we're going to set up a systems of equations. Our first equation, number 1, is negative 4a minus 2b, which is equal to 1. And equation number 2 is negative a plus b is equal to negative 3.5. So now we need to solve. So we can multiply, we can leave the first equation the same, and then we can multiply the second equation by 2. So we get negative 4a minus 2b equals 1. And this becomes negative 2a plus 2b, which is equal to negative 7. And so now we can eliminate the b's. So we can eliminate 2b because those give us 0. And then negative 4a minus 2a is negative 6a. And 1 minus 7 is negative 6. And therefore a is equal to 1. So we know that a is equal to 1. Now in order to solve for b, we just need to solve one of those equations. So if we plug this back into equation number 2, then we have negative 1 plus b, which is equal to negative 3.5. And if we subtract or add 1 to both sides, then b is going to equal negative 2.5. So now in step 5, we know that our form should be in the form of y, which is equal to negative ax squared plus bx plus 1, and then we're going to plug the values in. Well, a is 1, so it's going to be negative x squared. We know that b is negative 2.5, so minus 2.5 x plus 1. So therefore, there is our equation for that graph.